Hello, so this was another series I've been mentally debating with myself to produce. This is the Angel Bot Pink Robot unit, used to talk about various contemptible comments found in various areas on different platforms. The day as of writing up this deconstruction, I found a comment on a video by Luxter called Musical Hashbin, which is a commentary on another commentator, Lindata. The comment is by the user Nintendo Meta Runner, and that will be the sole focus on what I will be covering in this video. So Nintendo Meta Runner starts with the following.
Yeah. You took the troll's bait. I wouldn't have too much problems with this if you did a extremely difficult commentary and not a simple one. I can figure this out. It just goes to show that you are lazy when it comes to commentaries. At least on the points.
Simple points imply laziness? Okay, we'll keep this in mind for later.
At least my recent commentaries have more insight. Do you even link your sources? It's so long, I forgot.
As of this thread, your three most recent commentaries are A Comedian Among Us, An Unpopular Opinion, but Not Really, and Fundraisers Are Bad, none of which have any actual citations linked to your sources within the descriptions to your points. I see a bunch of social media links within their place, but nowhere do I see a source citation. On the note of you having more insight, this is subjective. From each of the three videos, you critiqued one's assumed parody rant, told iDubbbz that children aren't stupid, and presumed the intentions of the creators of Rick and Morty in order to make excuses to argue a reviewer's issues with an episode. There's not too much there that could be considered complex or difficult. Most of these come off as standard commentary talking points to me. To clarify, I do not find these topics to be an issue myself. I just think it's rather hypocritical to get onto Luxter's case for supposedly not sourcing his points to a simple video, while yours aren't that much deeper, and without actual citations. In comes the first response.
1. Linda is not a troll. She just wanted to use text-to-speech. 2. Gatekeepy much? Luxter may be in a drought of material and this is the best he could find. Even if he severed an extremely difficult video as you put it, that'd give Luxter trouble since the material is, well, extremely difficult. Covering easy material isn't lazy. It's better than nothing. 3. Read the description.
1. Lindate is not a troll. I may have had problems with this video, but she is someone who has been trying to improve her commentaries, as evidenced by what she said near the end of Doodle's try-up on her.
First of all, there's a few things I want to clear up about this video in question. The first one, I'm bringing this one up because it's quickest to state, because the reason why this was in 6 parts was simply because of the fact that it was in 6 parts because I was transitioning from Let's Playing to commentating. So if I was going to go back to Let's Playing, I probably would have wanted it to not stick out like a sore thumb compared to the rest of my gaming content, which is why all my stuff is done with gaming footage actually, because it just respects where I came from. And then second of all, I'm also making this video to apologise in a more public fashion so people know about it and they'll be able to take it seriously. So Gale Force, first of all, I am extremely sorry about how this video was 60% ad hominems towards you and your videos, so gotta say I'm sorry for that, just so everyone knows it. TP and Zarek, I'm extremely sorry to you for taking almost everything that you guys had said at face value and not going further into things I could have said. So yeah. So I'm not making this video because I want Doodles to go easy on me, because quite honestly I don't. Just go absolutely all out, because otherwise it's just not going to be any fun for anyone to watch, me, my friends, whoever. But still, I just wanted to put this out just so people actually see it and they know that I'm sorry for this video and I'm trying to move on.
2. Simple commentaries are not inherently bad. Digestible content is a thing and there are people that enjoy short and to the point videos.
as evidenced by the fact Nintendo Meta Runner's commentaries barely get over the 10-minute mark.
3. Do you even link your sources? Yes, in the description, right under the degree chain.
Joshua, I just think you're just being biased with how much you dislike the video because you don't like Luxter. Also, might I add that if you think Lindata is a troll due to text-to-speech, you are a hypocrite since you also use text-to-speech in your commentaries, reviews, etc.
To add on, I asked Linda a while ago why she used TDS and it was mainly because of dysphoria and thought her current voice doesn't pass, which is wrong because her voice is 100% valid for a woman, but it seems like now she found a solution. I think she pitches up her voice now.
I mean, even if she was, you can still cover a troll. All it changes is that the target won't take the advice given, it could still entertain people, or show others what not to do. Even then Lindata isn't a troll.
Completely fair and reasonable reason to use TDS.
I may not have proof that she is a troll, but just because someone said they'll get better, doesn't mean they're not trolls.
Perhaps not, but unless you have legitimate reason to believe they are trolls, or have proof that the video was done more in jest over serious discussion, then there becomes more of a reason to believe they are not merely doing their actions for the purposes of getting a rise out of people, and might instead be inexperienced or clumsy with their points. At this point you are presuming off of nothing, even by your own admission.
Giro is a good example of this.
How? I get that this is a comment thread, but you can expand upon your points and elaborate as to what this gyro character did that may match up with Lindata's actions. We don't instinctively know to whom you are referring to, so it's up to you, the debater, to fill us in.
1,2. Try imagining you got bland chicken and rice or fries or a type of food. Yeah, it is easy to digest, but the flavor is usually the biggest thing when making a recipe. Otherwise, someone would ask for some sauce, which there wasn't enough of.
What does this have to do with anything? If you're trying to get onto Luxter's case for not sourcing again, may I again refer you back to your own lack of citations within your video descriptions?
3. I mean your information to whatever you're quoting, not what you're commentating on and so on.
Once again, Luxter does have citations. His sources refer to the Addict music video and the definition to harem. What more does he need? Where could he have used an extra citation to?
Used to. Not anymore.
That doesn't change the fact that you did, at one point, use text-to-speech. Which by your own logic would infer that you were trolling within the videos you did. It also infers that I'm trolling, inherently, by this logic, so I don't expect a response from you, or else, you have been trolled.
I feel like you're more of a troll compared to your accusation tbh.
Yeah, if they were kids, that would be one thing. But with adults, it's redundant. If you hear the same thing over and over again, it gets annoying. They didn't ask for this, and yet they got time and place is a factor though. So okay, but it's more of a mixed thing than anything.
Then why are you arguing? If it's possible that covering a troll can still entertain people, then why is it a problem? On a different note, if I may be so bold, there's another reason why one may cover a troll, to cite next Guzman and Master TP10, when I was trolling the commentary community in 2017, they did a video on me because it had entertained themselves, they thought it was fun.
So that begs the question, why did we cover it anyways? Because we thought it was fun. Seriously, for how intentional the bad points were, me and Gwiz still had a lot of jokes going when we first watched it. So what if this commentary may end up doing the very thing trolls tend to want, giving them attention? If I'm enjoying myself, I don't mind, we all win. Unless you're somehow not a troll, in which case your arguments were bad and you could feel bad.
A lot of commentators presumably do these deconstructions on the basis for entertainment, yes, however, that doesn't instinctively mean that it inherently is exclusively made with the intent to entertain an audience. Making videos to entertain yourself is the sole reason why people make joke videos to begin with, especially if their normal audience is watching the YouTuber for their serious deconstructions. Overall, this point is massively subjective, and you arguing it objectively, doesn't work.
To be fair, trolls can execute it right without being obvious. The longer they keep trolling though, the less effective it becomes. Though trolls can also be entertaining if they aren't receiving it. Though when they are receiving it over and over, they see them as jokes. Armored Cat comes to mind. Granted, he sometimes does take it a bit too far, but that's irrelevant.
Coincidentally, I can say the same about your point here, as Blazon Hope is accusing you of being a troll over how you're accusing Lindata of being one. This whole conspiracy behind how compressed a troll's behavior can be is irrelevant.
1. I may not have proof that she's a troll, so your point is a baseless assumption then, good to know. 2. The flavor is usually the biggest thing when making a recipe, are you sure? Because with commentaries I thought the points were what mattered most, and nothing I said in this video was wrong, and if I did miss something you're not pointing out where. If you don't find my video entertaining that's fine, but that doesn't make a simple commentary bad by default. 3. The only two things I quote from this video are the definition of harem, and lyrics from the song being mentioned. Both of which are shown under sources.
It would be redundant with both. Age has no factor, in this particular case. Either way, I wouldn't call it redundant just because the target wouldn't take the advice, due to the multiple reasons I explained. Also, doing and watching commentaries is fun for some people. Is there really a reason you shouldn't be allowed to do a commentary for fun? I don't know if the over and over thing was elaboration, but if so, that's not the definition of redundant. 2. Does anyone ask for a commentary though? Hitting someone's video isn't something you need to ask to do. In most cases those making content are already open to the idea that their videos can and will be critiqued. Also consider that Lindata is a commentator. That means she knows this better than most new or smaller YouTubers. 3. Elaborate on your time and space being a factor. Overall, I am yet to see an actual reason why you can't cover a troll video. And again, Linda isn't a troll, and you assuming she is baselessly and trying to use that as an actual point is really dumb.
Hey, here's the funny thing, there is no way of spotting a troll unless they admit it or if it was freaking obvious.
Then why do you insist on coming in here presuming Lindata is a troll? This argument persists to get dumber with each passing return to it.
Reverse can be said about it as well. 1,2. Even some people need to put more flavor, otherwise you're just eating a hot dog with just ketchup. While it is a subjective thing, it could have been better. 3. Have you done this in past videos though?
This isn't relevant when you started asking for citations on a video where they exist. If you wish to presume that Luxter doesn't source his points, wouldn't it make more sense to do it on a video where citations don't exist? Never mind the fact that doing so could be considered cherry-picking if he does do it on his other videos. Getting onto his case for them here, on a video that does have them, just makes no sense. This also ignores my aforementioned retort regarding your own lack of citations and how this conversation is hypocritical.
I actually looked it up, and it's just another way of saying extra. Negatively. What I meant to say that it's repetitive. And yes, he parrots what he said multiple times. Which can be redundant. I've seen the simplest of things before, and he's just recapitulating. And do you want to know the funny thing? Repeating the same formula without enough substance can get annoying.
Then just don't watch his videos. I get the concept of don't watch is frowned upon within a community that purposely goes out of their way to watch videos they take issue with so and they can critique and deconstruct them. However, unless you're planning on making a video at this point critiquing Luxter's humdrum formula and explaining what he can actually do to add variety to his videos, then there's realistically no reason to watch any more of his content, correct? By definition, a formula is repetitious anyway, so if you ask me, this critique is missing the point of having one, but I do suppose no one asked me. I am but a mere humble troll, after all.
Also, he's not a musician. He should leave the songs to experts.
It's the switchiest thing he'll ever do. He's Nintendo's switch gamer dude. He's Nintendo's rich gamer dude. He's Nintendo's rich gamer dude.
Furthermore, I would have every reason to believe Luxter has a musical background considering a collaborative effort he did with Neziaminster earlier this year.
Simply must go.
Baby, it's cold outside.
The answer is no.
Baby, it's cold outside.
The welcome has been so nice and warm.
Look out the window at
Our audience will...
He's not a musician, as if you know for sure. Do you know Luxter personally? So you know his background better than what we can see? Who knew Nintendo Metarunner had such extensive connections to other commentators? Next you'll try telling me that a commentator who claims to be transgender secretly isn't.
That is what he doesn't realize. He could have said it's flat because most of it is monotone and little change of the pitch. Flat could have been more elaborated on since monotone and flat are similar. I'm flat on my vocals. She could have just said that, but it's possible she is not an expert. You see, that's why I think she's a troll. Because she, while not an expert, knows what she's talking about. There is a reason why you show and tell. It gives you the grasp.
It is also possible that a commentator who is estimated to be around 14 or 15 years of age could have also just thought they could talk about something they're not an expert on. But no, clearly they must be purposely talking about something they have no knowledge of because they're a troll. Does this mean you're trolling, Nintendo Metarunner?
Redundant just means unneeded. Also give me an example of a point Luxter repeated. And do you not know that people can describe a song even if they aren't musicians? Finally, using the wrong word doesn't make you a troll. I could flip this around on your point, say you were talking about it, and you mixed up repetitive and redundant. By your own logic, you're a troll.
No, you are completely wrong. Lindata is no troll. Sure, her saying she's not a troll doesn't mean she is not a troll. But you know what does prove that she isn't a troll? The fact that she wants to improve and knows when she screws up. An actual troll would never do that.
Giro admits to screwing up and wants to get better in the past. I had people say to me that I gave them constructive criticism and they took it to heart. The only thing is that action speaks louder than words. And all I see is words from her. Has she done any of the things?
Are you able to point to things she hasn't improved upon? After all, you're the one trying to make the positive claim that there's nothing she's improved upon and are using this as the crux to your argument regarding whether or not Lindata is a troll and whether or not Luxter commentated on a troll. So this is pretty important that you are able to provide evidence to demonstrate this point. Although, what you say soon after will completely negate this first half of the thread and open up another, rather disgusting, conversational topic that we're going to have to get into. I wish to add a content warning to this video regarding transphobia. Viewer discretion is advised from this point on.
Alright, I will admit that's a good point.
It really isn't, and you're probably going to regret saying that by Nintendo Metarunner's next comment.
Okay, I took a look at the content, and he has gotten better. Which begs to question why would he use text-to-speech?
Literally earlier on in this comment thread, Umbra stated that Lindata uses text-to-speech due to dysphoria in hearing her own voice, something that I know a few transgender people also struggle with. One in particular is a content creator that even you and I both worked with. The only difference between Doodletons and Lindata though was the solutions to their problems. Doodle uses a voice changer to conceal her voice while Lindata took the route of using text-to-speech. Otherwise, this question has already been answered and you chose to not read. Which is even more apparent when you realize that you start misgendering Lindata from here on out.
1 OK 2. This is bland, this is bland, this is bland. That's what he's been repeating.
Within Luxter's 12-minute deconstruction, Luxter, in order, gets onto Lindata's case for overblowing the length of the context to what the absolute degenerate is reviewing, explains that the context to Hashbin Hoden is more important than Lindata tries to say it is, explains what harem means, explains what the absolute degenerate had issues with regarding Angel Dust's singing voice, explaining the point of subjectivity in the review, elaborates on the absolute degenerate's points for Lindata, then argues with the absolute degenerate's claim that the song is generic and inherently boring, then goes back to Lindata by debating the relevance to her argument, tells Lindata to show evidence to her own positive claim, corrects Lindata's strawman on the absolute degenerate's strawman regarding the visuals, further elaborates on why the absolute degenerate is making a strawman to begin with, shows confusion to Lindata's logic when complaining about the absolute degenerate's points being subjective. Explains that the absolute degenerate did elaborate when Lindata makes the claim he didn't, then moved into his final thoughts where he explains the overall issue with Lindata's video is how she doesn't listen. Where, in the entire 12 minutes, does he get onto Lindata's case for being disinteresting? Much less where does he repeat this behavioral pattern throughout the 12 minutes? This really does come across as you not paying attention to the video this comment was left on, and it shows.
3. Okay, I don't know where I was going with this. 4. You've lost me there. Check your last argument. In fact, look back at the conversation, cause you must be confused.
Fractured Light's last argument is built on how you tried defending the claim Lindata is a troll by her incorrect argument towards the absolute degenerate's use of the word flat. They go on to explain this later in the thread. But they drop this talking point anyway, and turn to other talking points.
Look at what Umber said in reply to me. Also, Lindata's pronouns are she/her.
I rewatched the video and Luxter doesn't repeat the point. Give me timestamps. For number 4, you said that Linda was a troll because she knew a bit about the topic but wasn't an expert. Your evidence was her using the wrong word, so I turned it around on you.
It is.
Degenerate said that the song sounded flat, showed clips of Angel singing, and stated how that was probably why they auto-tuned him so heavily on the high notes. The explain card doesn't really work here since he's reviewing a mainly auditory medium. The most you could do are highlight points where the singing is particularly flat, but, well, that's exactly what Degenerate did here. So how would he be able to further explain this? If the singing is flat, then the singing is flat. He did say why though. He thought the singing was flat. Just because he didn't explain how the singing was flat, which, again, how is that even possible to do, that's still an explanation for disliking the song. Then what were all the digs about how his complaints were subjective supposed to mean?
At 4:30 the actual point is that you can't elaborate on something like the singing being flat. At 5:45 the point was Degenerate already explained why he doesn't like the song. At 10:42, was a list of things Degenerate said about the songs. At worst it's two similar points, Josh.
But they aren't similar. The first point is in reference to how Lindata wanted explanation to how the singing was flat, with Luxter saying that the complaint is self-explanatory with examples. The second point is in reference to Lindata asking for elaboration to why Degenerate disliked the song, with Luxter saying that Degenerate did explain his reasoning. The third example Nintendo Metarunner gave is completely unrelated to the conversation of Degenerate calling the singing flat, because this is Luxter being confused by Lindata saying that Degenerate was entitled to his opinion after she had previously complained about his points being subjective. That said, had they been similar points, then Nintendo Metarunner would have a point regarding his complaint about repetition in Luxter's deconstruction. However, since the context changes the points that Nintendo Metarunner tried using in a vacuum, then his complaint holds no ground.
He repeated that the song was flat. How are you this naive?
I can ask a similar question to you, because as stated before, Luxter's points when you look at the context to what he was covering change the situations to how the singing being flat is relevant. Meanwhile, you're seemingly trying to say that the points are the same merely because of the vocabulary that was used, and if I'm right in this presumption, then this critique is fucking stupid. Context matters, and within the confines of Luxter's video, you can see what the context is and why it's important to debunk the baseline of your argument here. Sure, Luxter did say the phrase "the singing is flat," but this isn't because he's trying to make the argument that the singing in Addict was flat. Luxter's phrasing here is parroting Degenerate's phrasing early on in the video because Degenerate thought the singing was flat. Not Luxter. Degenerate. Lindata was arguing against Degenerate's video, and the crux of a lot of her arguments were built on asking for further elaboration, and as Luxter said in his video, saying that the singing is flat is on its own is enough elaboration to make the point self-explanatory. You can't further explain how the singing is flat. Unless you were trying to say that Luxter was calling the singing flat as his own opinion, in which case this would be worse as you'd be openly mutilating the context, to make a point that is obviously incorrect. Unless you were doing this, your point regardless, doesn't work because it's be ignoring the aforementioned context that both Fractured Light and myself gave within this video. The only difference between these two metaphorical vials of poison is one is a slower death. This is a rather tedious discussion because at best, it's someone maliciously ignoring the context in which something is said to make an argument regarding something that just isn't true. At worst it's a presumably native English speaker butchering his own language rules.
No, he's a guy. If he was a girl, he would have a feminine voice. His text-to-speech is. If you're say he's transgender, then show proof.
One thing that I can point to is her Twitch channel, where she has the transgender flag as her profile picture. Another piece of evidence found within this very thread is Umbrus's reply explaining that Lindata used text-to-speech in her video on Dean Rate due to dysphoria reasons. Gender dysphoria is the feeling of discomfort or distress that might occur in people whose gender identity differs from their sex assigned at birth or sex-related physical characteristics, which also heavily implies transgenderism within this context. Umbrus also seems to have more of a connection with Lindata, shown by the part where Umbrus claims to have asked Lindata directly about her choice of text-to-speech, something that unless you have a closer relationship with Lindata, you can't really be arguing against. The fact that Lindata also chose to present herself as female in the video Luxter was covering is also a good indicator, but all this does is ignore how this conversation is asking for proof of something that doesn't realistically need proving. No one should need to prove that they are transgender for a person to respect their pronouns, or let an individual live their life the way they want to. Just as no one really needs to prove they are a part of the LGBT to be a part of the LGBT. To ask for evidence of such a claim is gatekeeping, and really shouldn't be tolerated. Lindata shouldn't have to prove that they're transgender just as I wouldn't need to prove I'm lesbian. This just isn't something you have to do. How would Lindata have to prove it anyway? By showing a doctor's note? Get real. Read a room, everyone, including yourself, was using she/her pronouns up to this point. You're the only one dropping them because of a superficial reason regarding something she obviously hasn't had training for.
Which is it? Knowing what she's talking about or using the wrong word? Because it's the former, not the latter. Look back at the conversation. Looking back, I never used that as evidence. All I said was she knows what she's talking about and called her a troll because of it.
So wait, are you trying to use the fact that Lindata knows what she's talking about as a troll? How does that make any sense? I'd argue that makes significantly less sense than what Fractured Light was arguing, because if you know what you're talking about, then wouldn't you have a reason to talk about something? I thought that was a mere typo earlier when he has stated that Lindata was a troll because she knew what she was talking about, but to know that this is a crux of your argument just fries my circuits. This is so confusing, not helped by the fact that I seem to have forgotten to screenshot the rest of this particular reply before the thread was deleted, so I can't see what Nintendo Metarunner is arguing here, though it doesn't appear to be very relevant going forward. Thankfully.
I was explaining why he repeated the word. You said he was being repetitive, which would only be a real problem if the point was the same. And you only found 3 instances in a 12-minute video, so once per 4 minutes. Flat could have been more elaborated on since monotone and flat are similar. I'm flat on my vocals. She could have just said that, but it's possible she is not an expert. You see, that's why I think she's a troll. Because she, while not an expert, knows what she's talking about. Say X instead of or to elaborate on why. This is why you're a troll. You know enough but aren't an expert.
Dude, stop. It still happened. I don't care what you think, just own up to your mistakes and put it to rest.
This is not an argument, this is you yelling at people to drop a subject you started.
Okay, that's transphobic as hell, Joshua. Not everyone uses TDS or a voice changer to sound feminine, and even then, why do you think she uses a female TDS voice in the video shown in Luxter's video? And even then, Dude Lutton says in the start of her 3HR commentary that Lindata goes by female pronouns. You are being so arrogant right now that it makes me think you feel you can't be wrong. Shut up and sit down.
This argument is literally nothing. You're just saying I'm wrong with no explanation. He said one word 3 times in a 12-minute video. That's not a problem, it's a subjective nitpick.
How about because she's a fictional character and not the actual person? I'm calling him a he. Unless he's truly transgender, I will call him as such. Also, no, it's not transphobic since we aren't sure if he is what he actually is. Again, I am willing to accept that if he says so. And no, his character doesn't count.
Okay, transphobe.
Nitpicks aren't inertly wrong. Here's an idea, don't flip-flop on your saying. It either means nothing or it's a nitpick also, it's a sentence. He just said it was flat, that's not a word.
Nintendo Meta Runner has derailed from this conversation so much in this comment thread that I don't think he knows what he's arguing anymore. I can say with certainty that I don't. It doesn't matter if it's a singular word or a sentence you're claiming he's repeating ad nauseum, the point is that you're overblowing this problem to a ridiculous length.
Let me put it this way. WTF, do you think everyone else has been saying her, she, etc. when talking about Lindata in this goddamn comment, champ? We aren't calling her a female because of her character, we are doing it because she's trans.
It's a subjective nitpick, stop strawmanning. The issue is the nitpick is not only extremely subjective, but it is effectively a non-issue. Also, when I said means nothing, I was referring to you telling me to learn from my mistakes, which did mean nothing. Also, it does not matter whether it was a sentence, it changes nothing, you were prior only complaining about the usage of the word flat. Here's an idea, tone down the aggression. You're digging for reasons to hate Luxter's video for some reason. Lindata is transgender, literally look at anything with her in it.
This was the last reply I saw before I decided to jot down my thoughts and make this video. As I said, the thread has been since deleted off of Luxter's video, so anything that was said after this I would have to obtain from him. As it stands though, I believe the point has been made enough for me to move on to my final thoughts. So Nintendo Meta Runner, I'm not aware exactly what your grudge against Luxter is, but it's obvious there were signs of bias and malignance shown within this thread. You started the conversation trying to say Luxter's video shouldn't have covered a troll, but then persist to move the goalpost when corrected while simultaneously sticking to your incorrect presumptions, so you didn't have to concede with the idea that you may have made wrong presumptions regarding what you were talking about. But worse yet, the more you doubled down, the more incoherent the argument became, and the worse your position became, especially when you started misgendering Lindata because you didn't want to call someone who was abundantly attempting to present female by correct pronouns. Which comes across as horribly transphobic, regardless of if you think Lindata is a troll or not at this point. On that note, you also have no actual evidence that Lindata is playing a character here, you're just going off the fact Lindata's voice is deeper than what you'd expect, ignoring how transgender people go through that struggle at some point, especially when they're early in coming to terms with the fact that they're transitioning, which Lindata may be. When everyone else is stating someone is transgender, especially those who appear to be closer to Lindata, such as Umbris, may be arguing against something that everyone else has been going off of isn't exactly smart. Especially when you're going to make such a conclusive statement as, no, they aren't transgender, without any proof. I can't at all understand this attempt. Regardless of the why you need this vindication against Luxter or Lindata, whatever your reason is for this argument as a whole, it wasn't worth it, especially not when it implicates some horrible aspects of your character. Learn when you're maybe not in the right, try to better understand your opposition's perspective, and maybe don't dive into a conversation this heated when it's clear that you hold some sort of grudge against those you're talking about. For now though, this is the end of my video. This has been Pink Robot.